So thanks everyone for coming out today to, the National Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition events. We do this once a quarter. I've been very excited for this event this year. Actual business owners actually living out our dreams up here today. Or maybe they'll dissuade us as to this path. I don't know. I don't know what they'll end up telling us. But I appreciate everyone coming out. This is a, audience-driven event. So as we go through, feel free to hop in. I do want to take a minute to kind of thank the other, besides the panelists, other people who make this happen. Tammy, the Sapphire Suite. This is her space. Tammy, if you want to say a few words about your space.
First of all, welcome everyone. I'm still waiting for that dream part that you all are going to tell us about. But so what we are is we are a co-working meeting space and event venue. So the area that you are in right now is our co-working space during the day. And then the other 2/3 of the space, we have about 5,500 square feet. So the other 2/3 of the space are small conference rooms. We have a double board room, Zoom rooms. So perfect space for client meetings, strategy sessions, lots of whiteboards, big TV monitors back there. And this area also can be an event venue where we can do seated for 65, like a corporate training, or if you want to do a mixer, something like that, a client appreciation type dinner, perfect for that type of space as well. So if you're looking for any of those things, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Tammy. And then Matt, if you want to stand up, do you want to say a few words about Old National Bank? And
Yeah, sure. So I know most of you, but if I don't know you, I would love to meet you. We sponsored the coffee. This is a wonderful space. So thank you so much for hosting us. And thank you, Joe, for continuing to do these awesome ETA events. For those of you that don't know, I'm a lender, SBA lender. It feels like it's my birthday today because the government's back reopened. We are happy about that. So if you have any deals, please let us know. We offer low fixed rates and we get deals done quickly. So we would love to talk with you.
Absolutely. And if you want to have your banner up that is sponsoring one of these events in the future, you just need to do what Matt does, which is to ask me to do it before I'm even thinking about when the next event is. So that's the strategy. So the format today is we've got our panelists. These are real business owners, people who have acquired their businesses. I have 3 planned questions. And so it'll be a question and then we're going to write their answer down on this pad and we'll do a reveal and then we'll kind of have a conversation from there. I have planned 3 questions only, which means that if you have questions, please hop in. There'll be, a designated time for Q&A after the planned questions. But if anything they say intrigues you, put your hand up and we'll get your question answered and by all the panelists, specific ones. So introduce who these owners are.
Like the
You got some novelty in here. Okay, let's see. Let's do a reveal. So how'd you find your acquisition? All right, let's keep it simple. We'll go left from my left to right. So
George,
whatever.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Joe. And happy belated Veterans Day, too.
Yeah.
So, pandemic 2021, actually, feeling like it's the right opportunity to buy a business. And so I just listened to a couple podcasts, watched a couple YouTube videos, decided I wanted to do it. And I come from the sales world, sales background, asked me to be sales. So this was something I was comfortable with. I literally just built a funnel, top of funnel, 400 companies, decided on my sector, and then just built a drip campaign with emails, did the maybe testing of emails, and then cold called about 400 people, and then whittled it down, got maybe 50 people, had good conversations with maybe 20, maybe 10 of them were willing to sell, negotiated with maybe 5 of them, and made an offer to 2.
How long have you owned Nuveldy?
For 5 years on January 11th.
And George is on, for those who listen to the Acquiring Minds podcast with Will Spence, George, you have an episode. Paul, did you have a similar, just you built a funnel and then you found someone that straightforward for you too?
No, I took maybe a less sophisticated approach. For campaigns, although I know the traditional searchers that I know, that's a big part of their search approach. For me, it was just coming from a background in consulting and operations with big companies and wanting to do most things for years since I was a kid. The idea that inspired me to start the thing. I have a friend here in town that had bought a business and ended up very successful exiting. And so I kind of used him as a role model. Learned a lot from him. I went to a couple conferences at Harvard Business School and University of Chicago Business School, their ETA conferences. And build a relationship with attorneys, bankers, business brokers. Thought that these businesses are for sale with business brokers. And so the path of least resistance, I felt like networking was important. And actually, a couple great opportunities came from that. One I didn't make an offer on, but brokers were my main approach. Ultimately found one by developing a relationship with a broker. Shout out to my school, my child's school. So we got to be kind of friends. I came to one day just touching base. I did have a spreadsheet, to track the brokers, the opportunities. But now, kind of how often I would reach out to them. And he said, I'm talking with the business owner. Don't have the papers yet signed, but I think it's going to come to fruition. So stay in touch. 2 days later, we got them signed. And so it never hit the market, which was great.
Oh, that's good. And what's the business again? How long is
It
it?
was Pyramid Pest Control. And I bought it 2 years ago, this coming January. So about almost 2 years.
So Brad, maybe I'll come back to you. I'm kind of interested, right? You had Biz Buy Sell. Was that a business broker on the other end of that as well? Or was it another?
Yeah, so it was a business broker, and it was, I'm not as charismatic as George, so calling everyone was really not. But yeah, I went through that. Give some more information on it, but eventually got to it.
Yeah. So could you tell us kind of the rest of it?
Yeah.
What you bought and
Yeah, so just kind of how I tried to go down a lot of these routes. I wasn't good at talking down there, just, lead a lot of conversations, but I found I struggled with telling someone what something's worth and being a bad guy to have to tell them it's worth a lot less than they think. And I found a lot of people that weren't serious about something once they found that I told them what the market. So kind of originally Biz Buy Sell, I was like, okay, let's just at least meet the brokers through that. Got all the brokers who were then introducing me to things, and met folks at different networking events. Well, I had a couple of met through people through these, and then I reached out on a Biz Buy Sell. It was a guy at Atlanta I'd never talked to, and that's the one that ended up hitting. So it was just casting a wide net. I bought Tennessee Awnings. It's just awnings. We do awnings, canopies as well. That's a big one. Walkway coverings, what my guys like to say. And no one knows the differences between all these. So when you see them on the outside of the building, or almost every building you'd see, you drive through every strip mall, we do fabric, we do that. There are a lot more places than you think. I didn't realize until I bought the company, but that's kind of how I ended up with it. I closed in July, so I'm definitely on the newer side of being the owner of all this, but I sat up there for a year going to your events. So,
right.
Yeah.
So may I honey back to you.
Yeah.
So how many people did you have to call to find your business?
I was going to say, I feel like I've seen your strategy here. It's going in more of most personal effort, at least. So that I actually helped build my company. So I bought the company that I was employed at for about 11 years. We are a social media marketing agency, very well established. Primary footprint is in New York City, but obviously now we're have one in Nashville as well. And I had worked with the founder for, like I said, over a decade, helped her really scale the company in conjunction with obviously a number of other folks on our team. And she made the decision to exit in 2021. And so I kind of stuck along through that process, joining up with the new larger enterprise company that had acquired Likable originally. And it was just very apparent from an early point that, despite sort of like everyone's best intentions, the fit wasn't there. It wasn't a good fit. We never really integrated. They did a few things that I thought were perhaps detrimental to the business, like a name change and some things like that. And we got to the point after the founder was fully gone that I just kind of went to the CEO and I was like, look, I care about this place. I'll build this place. And I would very much like to have it back, basically. And knew very little about, I was interested in entrepreneurship, but knew very little how to go about it, and certainly didn't know much about M&A. So I just kind of, I got we think it's worth for men, and I very quickly started to round up a team of people who were smarter about those things than I was at the time and educate myself. And I was able to close the deal last summer.
And was it the name of the company? Yeah.
We are Level.
And how many years did you work there versus how many of you owned it now?
Well, Level was founded in 2007. So almost a 2-decade-old company. I did join in 2014. So I've been at the company for about 12 years. Owned it for 6 months.
Lisa, feel free to tell us about any of the many acquisitions that you've done.
Well, I'm listed under Keystone Pharmacy, so that's the one I'll talk about today. So I had a little bit of a different path. I come out of big organizations. So I led a $1 billion health system, deals on the governor's cabinet, led a $700 million state agency. So I was ready to get out of that, and I wanted to find something smaller, but not tiny. And so my buy box was bigger than SDA. And so I originally started out with a Swiss sponsor. Obviously, healthcare is all I know. I'm a physician by training. And when you get into the regulatory environment of changing licenses, it really throws a wrench in it when you've got international money on your cap table, because you have to produce cap tables for these licensure transfers. So my Swiss sponsor got bought out by 2 SBIC funds and kind of a growth equity PE fund. So I needed to buy bigger. And so I went with an investment banker. And initially, when I launched my search, I started with proprietary outreach. I ran into they didn't have their materials compiled. They weren't really 100% sure they wanted to sell. And I had kind of on the sidelines. I needed to deploy pretty quickly. And so I started just signing NDAs 2 and 3 a day just to get books and start learning. And so ultimately came across one with Vertes Healthcare Advisors. I really appreciated the way they did things, because everybody who represents a particular vertical has had to have operated in that space. So ultimately was looking at initially a 340B pharmacy up in Chicago, which had great numbers. Chicago wasn't within really driving distance of Nashville or in the Southeast. And the banker ended up saying, well, I've got this specialty pharmacy, but it's not in a very attractive geography. And I said, and he said, Mississippi. I said, oh, yeah. They're my people. So I bought a specialty pharmacy in the wound care space. It's super niche. Even though I've been in healthcare for 20 years, I didn't even know something like that existed. So all we do is custom make antibiotics for people who can't take regular antibiotics or that they don't work. And so I closed on that deal July 1 of last year. So about 15 months ago. We've been growing like crazy since. I was not looking for a pharmacy at all. Of course, I had run hospital pharmacies or pharmacies inside hospitals before. But my search thesis for that acquisition was healthcare services that expands access to rural and vulnerable populations and is located in the Southeast. And if you would have asked me on day one of my search, and they did, what does that look like? That's probably an ambulatory surgery. The infusion, actually, both of those spaces were super hot at the time and having double-digit multiples, which my sponsors weren't fond of. And so I was actually also looking for behavioral health and had looked at that first banker that gave me the 340B pharmacy. That was after I had turned down a residential addiction treatment in Texas. And so we just kind of, what else you got? What else you got? Who else do you know? Kind of thing.
For all the panelists, obviously you're in business now. When you started this idea of like, I think maybe I'll buy a business, I want to be a business owner, is what you own now kind of within the vision of what you started with, or is it a surprise what you own?
Let's say, so I was a mechanical engineer originally. I've always loved fabrication. I've run factories before. That's exactly what I wanted to do when I started my search. It took a while. So along that route, there were a lot of other things I looked at. I would have been open to a lot of circling back to like the exact thing that I enjoyed. So I got, because I was geographically focused, so I actually more open in industries as long as they make money. But I ended up in something exactly like I wanted. So
as I look back, I think I dodged some bullets, frankly, because I made offers on companies that, in hindsight, I would not have been positioned well to either succeed or enjoy. And I think what I set out to find is thankfully closer to what I found than the several other companies that I put offers on down on and didn't win. So I thank the Lord that, this one did come across my radar. Frankly, I didn't see too many that did. And so if I look back, why was I willing to flex more than, I probably should have? And it's just, you get to that point where you're like, I just want to get going and find that company to buy. So, by striking that balance between discipline and not so much discipline that your funnel is so narrow you don't see anything. Is I think the challenge here.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I ask a follow? I think that was a really good thought from like a lending perspective. What in your business ownership experience caused you to realize that, hey, I might not have been a good fit for these other companies that I was looking at? Because that's a big piece that, like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
If you're a buyer, but like, what have you experienced that kind of taught that?
I mean, you can kind of get. I sometimes think about it as like, what are my gifts as I'm meeting with friends or people who are considering this? It's like, what are your gifts? What are you good at? Perhaps a competitive advantage. And that could come from innate gifts, personality, or could also come from experience. So what gives you a leg up against the greater population of buyers and just in general? And then what are you passionate about? What do you enjoy? Also, it could be personality. It could be where do I want to spend my time? If I came from the working, loafers and desk world, do I want to be on a job site? Or do I want to be mucking, a really dirty job? So that kind of like, what's going to make me happy? Does that overlap? And then obviously, the fundamentals of a good business. And so I was seeing the fundamentals come across my desk, and it met some of my buy box criteria. I'm not Lean Six Sigma minded. So the manufacturing, opportunities I was looking at in Hendersonville, darn well, didn't work out. I wanted something that was, I wanted to help people feel good about the service I was providing. But in-home senior care, which is another company I've done an offer on, I don't know that at the end of the day, I would really enjoy that.
Can you send me that deal?
Yeah. I think it would be amazing. You would sleep well at night knowing you're helping families and helping people that can't help themselves. And that would feel awesome. It's certainly a great business model given the aging population. But at the end of the day, that'd be a tough one. That, crawl spaces and roaches. That's the personal piece that you got to kind of explore.
All right. Notepad question. What was your biggest challenge when you first selling days? You made an acquisition. You're in charge now. What was the toughest thing that you had to deal with? All right. What was tough early on? Healthcare, contract transfers, operating from a place of fear, and cash flow. Brad, what do you mean by healthcare?
So, yeah, I always worked at big companies, so it's just like, hey, just sign up for it. And when I defined an asset sale, they had healthcare. So I wanted to keep everything going. I wanted to make it as simple as possible for all the employees. That is very hard to do, very expensive, it turns out to do, because I bought part of a larger company. And when I did that, all of a sudden, it's like, well, we're making your rates. I don't know exactly what they're going to be. And I was like, well, our current coverage ends at the end of the month. I need something in place for people. Within my first 30 days, I had 50% increase in my healthcare costs. So it's like, whew, it's not easy to eat, right? And then there's all the other stuff of like, hey, my deductible, I've used that through now. I was told it would go through. They said they'll roll it over. Well, guess what? Yesterday, all my employees came to me and said, hey, they didn't actually roll it over like they said they would. I've looked at 200 PPO and like, well, you got to do it right now before their claims. If you cancel it now, you could get hit with the balance. I'm like, well, what's the balance? They're like, I don't know. Well, I can't, that's not an option. Right? So it's slightly horrifying. I'm not cool for a year. I basically cost difference. And so I didn't look for this to all. It was my first time doing this. Far more expensive than just eating this. But that is something that I was very ignorant to. I'm learning to the part of running a small business. That's been the hardest part for me, balancing that.
Paul, it's your diligence list. I want to go to Paul, but I was kind of curious about healthcare. Was you personally a business issue? I'm kind of curious to maybe go from maybe like Paul and like kind of some of the personal challenges, because that's certainly part of it. It sounds like maybe Paul is personal in mind, and then I kind of see if I can work to George at the end of cash flow finances. Looking by, I mean,
First, I commend you for offering that as a benefit because you don't have to as an employer. And I think it's really generous of you.
It's not even funny. It's other stuff.
Yeah. Enter just space I was completely unfamiliar with employees, customer industry. So, everything, if you're used to a career where you built years of experience and years of momentum and you know people in your organization, there's a degree of comfort and you're leading from, you're doing your job from a place of confidence. You step into this and you never know what you're going to step into. I didn't know it. So things like, how is this going to go with the employees? And I found it to be really hard to lead from a place of confidence and conviction. And instead I was like, walk very gingerly through these, following with those reasons. And I don't know. That's for me, that was tricky.
right. So at least you have professionalization. Honeymoon, you have see where to go next.
Tax transfers, which was a surprise to me. It's interesting because a lot of the things that these guys have are things that I considered for this, but I, of course, was in a little bit of an advantage position because I had already been operating the business that I was buying. Like I had the trust of my team. I felt like that was a pretty short thing and was going to be an easy part of the process. But it turns out when you're going from small to big, it first has to be rather than going from big back to small. And so it's been good. I think that we've been able to do everything. There's been a lot more sort of like super work and to do through and for me to reassure and all that kind of stuff than I would have anticipated.
I know when kind of going back to relating it to Paul, did you feel like you were on the defensive a little bit of like you're the new owner and you've got to kind of bend to maintain these relationships as someone?
Well, I think what's weird is that, I was the person with the pre-existing relationship with all client contact. So I didn't really have that, but I had to rally together with them to help their leadership understand that it was the same organization. People that were not as familiar with us or our story.
So professionalization. So you're showing up in Mississippi, trying to professionalize the pharmacy. Was that?
Yeah, and my number one mistake was assuming that it already was, because it was an 8-figure business with, pharmacists are doctorate level professionals. And so 6, 7 doctorate level professionals in the capital of Mississippi would have assumed, we had basic things like, email, but no. So it was, if you're going to post this video, we probably should clip this out. It's a story that really illustrates what I was walking into. The conference room is right when you first come in the front door. And I was bringing up loads from the car, of moving in my office on the first day. And one of the loads had a ring light. And so I came in and I put, set it on the table and I went down to get another load. And I came back up and there were 3 or 4 people standing around that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do y'all have a meeting in here? I'm sorry. Let me get this stuff. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, what is what? Wow. And they're and somebody joked, is that a teleport? I'm like, no, it's a ring. I were joking, but they were like, I said, it's a ring light. And what would you use that for? Are you on TikTok? I'm like, no. I said, like Zooms and stuff. And I kid you not, they go, why do you need Zoom? And so we started talking about basic processes. There was a calendar, and it was just fascinating to me because I had come from these very large corporate. I knew to expect the QuickBooks and not like an ERP kind of thing, but I was not prepared for that. And so, you walk into something like that, you think, where do you even start? So I'm like, well, how about with Outlook and Teams? And so we started with that. Nobody used it. Really, nobody uses it now. We put the EOS system in place. And so introduced some structure to that. And that was good. But then Paul and others have referenced about 90 days in when, it was clear that, he's not joking about the email thing. Like we should probably read it. I started getting some dissatisfied people. And I ultimately lost one of the pharmacists who didn't like to follow protocol talent. And so what I'm trying to do is fill up that workforce funnel as much as I can, but we're scaling so fast, I can't keep up. It makes me a little short breath even talking about it. because what we did when we formalized the sales process is we started this flywheel and, oh, shoot, it's working. And so now we know that a new prescriber, a new provider who starts writing our products will ramp up from 1 prescription, 2, 3 to about every month until they hit a steady state at about 4 to 5 prescriptions per month at 4 to 5 months. I've been tracking leading indicators over this calendar year, and we were on a clip of adding, on average, 4 new providers nationally a week. And last week we added 17. And so 4 months from now, when they're, so I can kind of estimate my volume. I've got space issues in Mississippi. I've got major workforce issues, and I need a second location. I also ship. And it's a mail order pharmacy. So when I bought the pharmacy 15 months ago, we were in 12 states. This week we're in 32. And so now I have to have a second location with a 2-day shipping radius because nobody wants to wait for antibiotics more than 2 days, right? You wait for your cholesterol medicine, you're not going to wait for antibiotics. And so I've got to start a de novo second location, not only to get the shipping radius, but to also have more production capacity. And the number one reason or factor in choosing said de novo location is availability of workforce. That also overlays with the shipping radius as well as just density. And so I'm going to upstate New York.
Anyone
There's
else?
a lot of people there.
Anyone else super stressed out now?
Yeah.
You wrote a vision, is that right?
It's really about being the vision. Somebody who was at the company for a long time doing the following and all this kind of stuff. I never had to be that person, I did everything, boots on the ground. I worked with the team, did all the operational stuff. And so I felt very comfortable with that going into this. So the challenge that I have now is, my team knows me as this sort of like in the weeds person. My clients know they can call me if they have a problem. And at the same time, it's so important that I start to prioritize executive visibility for myself, prioritizing any kind of networking and marketing, and also just kind of pushing innovation within the agency. We're social media marketing agencies, more than ever, it's really important for us to be sort of at the forefront of things that are happening, how large language models interact with social and all of these kinds of things. And it's up to me pushing those. And at the same time, I'm like still very much perceived as in a lot of ways. So, and I have a great support team to me, including my operations person who
Executing, I have ideas and I have dreams, but finding the time to execute is really hard. I don't think that's uncommon in the small business world. Getting him lines, sales channel, growth channels, but it's hard to answer the phone with the customers.
Well, if you call Pyramid Pest Control, that'll be how you get Paul back on. He'll be answering them. Yeah. And then Brad, managing change.
Yeah. So, I did the right thing for all the books. The first 90 days is listen, right? The only things I acted on quickly was safety. So within the first week, we're wearing safety glasses inside the shop. Like that's kind of a table stakes for it. So we did some things on safety, instituted that pretty quick. Just kind of background to come from. But then it was really just listening. So I was listening, going out, seeing how they're doing things. I wrote out a bunch of procedures. They were technically my notes. They may or may not know that those are going to be our procedures that we're going to follow. And if we don't follow them, there's going to be conversations that go with it, right? But the first 90 days really listening. I'm just past that now. And it's okay, what are the first things we do? And it's not just what are the things we do in order. How do I not scare off all the employees? For better or for worse, the company I bought has been around 20 years. I've been doing it a long time. The same way, it's been growing. I've really been doing well, right? Too many things, you'll lose a lot of people. And sometimes it's people that, they just don't want to come on. And then there are other people that want to, but it's never been part of their experience, especially the blue collar stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's been doing it the same way for 30 years. We're going to keep doing it that way. And there's something to be said for that, right? And taking the best practices. But it's been figuring out which ones, and then when am I pushing people too far? So we came up with a project management tools. And so we say when it's done, now it's not, oh, we're going to be late on that job next week. It gets, hey, we might be late on this job next month if we don't do this now. So trying to get ahead of that. That's been a stressful one. But that's just one of the examples, right? And we're going to do something similar with our sales pipeline, right? Proper CRM. So if I did all those on day 91, I would have people leaving, right? So it's really understanding what people are capable of today. It's the same thing as with small company. There's very good people that want to come along that just haven't seen that aggressiveness that I feel with, hold on, let's sit down. Like, have you ever do you run this pivot table? What's pivot tables? Okay, hold on. Sorry. Okay, my bad. Here's this basic number. This is what we're aiming for. This is what we're trying to improve. This is why we're doing it. Tell the whole story the way people want. That's probably the hardest part is there's a lot of stuff you're going to want to do. Systems are easy to implement. There's a million systems now with software. It's great. We put it in that day one, but nobody's going to use it, right? So managing that with the people who can keep up with the change is important. And it's tough. There is no right answer. You got to feel it out with every company and every person, quite honestly. So that's a big one.
Thanks, Brad. Who's got a time check for me? Let's make sure stay on track. 10:43. All right, we've got probably time for a couple of questions before I'll kind of let people mingle on their way out. Any audience questions? Jim?
I think it's too soon.
Yeah, I got one. I overpaid, and it was because, again, of just ignorance. There's something. I'll never make the same mistake again. Essentially, what the seller did was she hid that her husband was doing a ton of work for the business, like off the books, and then that was just grouped into seller's discretionary earning. But I'm getting two people for that seller's discretionary earning. So that really should be cut in half or minus whatever he was worth, 100 grand, 150 grand, something like that. The part B of your question, no, it did not matter. It maybe mattered in those first 3 months, but it was still a steal compared, what I have today is totally worth everything that I paid for it, everything that I went through. So it didn't matter. Again, like now, I would have been able to figure that out.
Yeah.
But back then, 5 years ago, when I had no idea about really how to look at the numbers in a sophisticated way or anything like that, I knew he was working in the business in some capacity, but I thought he was, at the time, I thought he was essentially working as a laborer, as a contractor, but he was really like field service rep, basically, and their field quality assurance rep, which is way more expensive than contractor, basically. So, yeah, totally missed it, but I'm okay.
We had a question here.
Yeah, I was just curious as to, did you buy these businesses with the intent of, I'm going to build this business or take on this business and sell it? Or is your goal in mind to, I want to grow this business to leave it as an inheritance? And what is determining those factors? Given, I know they can change at any time, but kind of where's your mindset going as you build these businesses?
Well, I'm not getting any younger. I'm a financial buyer, and I've done 3 acquisitions, 1 a year for the last almost 3 years. So 2.5 years, 3 businesses. I've got 2 LOIs out right now. Although I am actively operating the pharmacy that we've talked about and kind of halfway operating this second one, which is a wellness fitness company. My goal is to get out of daily operations here in the next year or 2 and then have a flywheel of an exit a year, which is, helps with the retirement plan.
I'm definitely holding. I want to grow it. So my kids are in elementary school here. We moved here 4 years ago. Love Middle Tennessee. My wife works over at Schneider Electric. So we said, hey, how about we make sure we stay here? We were traveling and seeing each other in the airport before COVID and all that. We just never really saw each other. So they're like, kind of work out. Let's kind of invest in the community. They have said that, so maybe they're going to aid that idea. But in my head today, I want to be able to hold it and continue to grow it for as long as I can.
I actually love this question. Because we kind of talked about beginning, current, to now kind of future where maybe you think it'll exit, legacy, whatever. So why don't we make this the last question, and then we'll do Funny, Paul, and George.
I'm 6 months in, and in some ways 12 years in. So, I am leaving the door open to all possibilities, I think. The first step is I would just like to build it back up to sort of its former glory. And then I think one of two, either way, I'm not, I don't see myself leaping into family, but it will either go to one of the employees that I was always like a partner and is quite a bit younger than me and very invested and worked really hard at it.
Yeah, I think to your point, it could change anytime, but my current plan is to just grow. I'm having fun doing it. So I intentionally didn't take on investors so that I could kind of write that playbook as things unfold. I just went to a conference, and there was an ETA panel, and a big topic or trend now is Partner Shore hosted it in Columbia, Missouri, and his company is called Permanent Equity. So this idea of like, if it's growing and it's a great company, why sell it? The growth that he's experienced, and if you can continue that and hopefully compound it over years, get an operator in place, like do it again. But if I have good reason to sell, then I'm sure.
Maybe the right offer comes along. You can't say no. Yeah. And George, how about yourself?
I'm Schrodinger's cat on this question. So my strategy is to at every moment be ready to sell or hold it forever. I think those complement each other too, because a buyer would want to see a business that couldn't be held forever. And it puts me in a better negotiating position if somebody does want to buy it. I don't need to sell it right now. I can hold this. It'll be perfectly comfortable. So that's sort of my strategy. But not yet. I'm selling it. And very much having thinking 5 to 7 years out at all times. I have every single year for the next, let me be honest, for the next 5 years, I have every single year sort of mapped out. It obviously gets vaguer towards those back years. Designing it to hold it forever. And if somebody wants to make me an offer, that sounds pretty good.
All right. Well, we'll bring you back and see if the Schrodinger apartment turnover is alive or dead.